Welcome back to my ayahuasca series. I missed you. This video is part 4, and in it, we'll be discussing the infamous Yagé night. Parts 1 through 3 are linked below, where we discuss preparation, pricing, my accommodations, and the first 3 nights of ceremony. So if you haven't seen those, you might want to catch up. Other than that, you've waited long enough. Let's jump in. If you're like me and you watch YouTube videos on the Yagé night at Rythmia, then you might be thinking it's going to be insane, crazy, and terrifying. And if you plan on attending Rythmia in the future, you might be super nervous. But lucky for you, I'm here to offer a different perspective. Now, don't get me wrong, the Yagé is very intense, but intensity doesn't have to be a negative thing. The beautiful thing about Yagé or ayahuasca is that no two journeys are alike. Even with me, each night that I drank, completely different vibe. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to other people's experiences. Don't let it influence you too much because you're going to have your own journey. So sit back, relax, maybe get a cup of tea, and put your fears aside because my last night was amazing and intense. So you may be asking, what the heck is Yagé? And you know what? That's a very good question. To be completely honest, I still don't know. There's a reason, don't drag me. So different people will give you a different answer when you ask them about what Yagé is. Some practitioners say that it is the same thing as ayahuasca. Others say it's a very similar plant. Others say it's a different part of the plant. I honestly stopped asking questions because I was getting so much conflicting information. The thing about sacred plant medicines is that you can't get a lot of your information online, even though we're online right now, but you're going to get my perspective and not necessarily the perspective of the elders and the people who have this medicine and the teachings in their lineage. I think now it's becoming a little more popular for some of the teachers to get online and explain these things. But to my knowledge, a lot of this has been kept secret and sacred and just passed down verbally within the community. So I said all that to say that to my understanding, each community has their own definition, their own style, their own recipe for preparing the medicine. Some healers use ayahuasca and Yagé interchangeably and others do not. At Rythmia, they do distinguish between the two, and the main thing you're told is that the Yagé night is very intense and that it's a different animal. And I think they're kind of right. So there are a number of reasons you have a different experience each time you drink the medicine, and one of those reasons is that the medicine each night is prepared by a different shaman. And like I said, they may have their own style. The medicine may encourage them to prepare it slightly different. There's a lot of intricacies that I really didn't ask because I felt like it wasn't really my business, but I'm just telling you kind of what I picked up on. So on my 4th night at Rythmia, I had the honor of being served by Taita Juanito. And I didn't know this before going, but he's a really big deal. Taita is not always at Rythmia. He also owns his own healing center. I believe it's called Ambiwasi. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But he does have a long-standing relationship with Rythmia and works with them pretty regularly. So like I said, I was lucky enough to attend on one of his dates, and he did serve us Yagé on the 4th night. Just a little background on Taita Juanito. We call him Taita, by the way. I'm going to be reading from the Rythmia website and his site. Juan Guillermo Chindoy, known as Taita Juanito, is a powerful medicine man coming from the Inga tribe in the southern region of Putumayo, Colombia. He is known for his big heart, sense of humor, and infinite capacity for love. Now I wish I would have read this before I went because they didn't make him sound friendly like this. Let me explain. My expectation versus the reality were two totally different things. Now remember, I hadn't really done much research about Taita before going because I kind of just wanted to be in the moment. I trusted the process. I didn't want to psych myself out, if that makes sense. And even with the YouTube videos, I kind of limited myself. I didn't want to go overboard and start overthinking everything. But once we got to Rythmia, so many of the guests and staff were just whispering about Taita. They were like, he's so powerful. I can't wait for his night. And I'm like, dang, they keep hyping this man up. Like, okay, I'm ready for it. And as we went through night 1 of the ceremony, night 2, there were some people who really didn't feel like they were getting the visions or having a mind-blowing experience, and everyone would always say to them, it's okay, wait till night 4 with Taita and the Yagé. So I'm like, okay, Taita and the Yagé, this should be good. Hello. If you've been enjoying this video so far, please be so kind as to like and subscribe. Thank you. So I was feeling good about it, but then people kept saying, yeah, it's really intense, he's powerful. And I'm like, what did I sign up for? So in another video, I mentioned that Rythmia gives you 3 intentions to help support your healing journey while you're there. And these intentions are meant as something you present to Mother Ayahuasca. The intentions are show me who I've become, merge me back with my soul at all costs, and heal my heart. So after my first night of ceremony, I was pretty sure that I accomplished all of those goals. I was like, check, check, check. But as I was going to the classes, because at Rythmia, they have different classes in between your ceremonies that you go to. And they're wonderful because you get to hear other people's experiences and learn from them. So as I'm hearing other people share their stories, I'm like, started to question a little bit like, maybe I didn't hit all three of those. And this wasn't a feeling of like journey envy. I think that's what they call it when you're like listening to other people's stories and you're like, they saw aliens. I want to see aliens. You know, it wasn't that. It was more like a soft nudge, like a voice saying, hey, maybe look into this deeper. Maybe you haven't, checked all the boxes per se. And the thing that made me think that is that a lot of people kept saying they had a big breakthrough moment with their inner child. And one of the facilitators said, yeah, that's a huge part of healing your heart and merging back with your soul. So I'm like, I need to have a chit chat with my inner child. Where is she? I did get a little preview of some inner child stuff on night 3, but I didn't necessarily feel like I had a huge merging with that child, if that makes sense. So night 4 is approaching, and night 4 is special for a number of reasons. Number 1, it's your last night at the facility drinking the medicine. Number 2, we're doing Yagé. Number 3, Taita Juanito was there for my night. And we all had the opportunity to meet with Taita one-on-one and share with him our intention for that evening. Now, this wasn't some long drawn out thing. Remember, there was like 80 of us. It was a huge group because so many people came to see him. So we really only had like 1 to 2 minutes to meet with him. But they told us beforehand, get your intention, get clear. So when it's your turn in line, you present him your intention and he will go, and then assist you through the night. I gotta say, this is one patient man because I don't know if I would want to sit through 80 people telling me their problems. Just being honest. Right, so it's night 4. We're lined up in the Maloka waiting to talk to Taita Juanito. Now for me, my intention was super simple. I wanted to make sure I completed those 3 intentions that Rythmia gave us. And since I wasn't sure about it, I just told Taita that. So there was a very long line. I'm not gonna lie, it took a minute, but whatever, like where else am I going? This is what I'm here for. So I just sat on the floor, chilled, and slowly scooted up while I waited for him. And when it was finally my turn, I approached cautiously because I had heard so much. Taita does not speak English. Wait a minute. I just thought to myself, no one said he doesn't speak English. What if this man really speaks English the whole time? He just doesn't want to talk to us. And he's like, just kidding. I don't think he speaks English. So he has a translator next to him. And I look into his eyes and instantly I feel a shift in my energy. Like I feel very safe. I feel respected. And I feel like, okay, I'm gonna like this guy. He has a pretty neutral face. He's not smiling. He's not frowning. And honestly, he might have just been tired. Like I was towards the back of the line. So he had been listening to people for at least, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. But he was sitting there patiently. And I shared with him my intention that I wanted to make sure I checked off those 3 intentions that Rythmia provided. Please have Mother Ayahuasca show me and let's get it done. So the translator tells him and he's like, bueno. There were no limits on what type of intention you could share. Some people shared physical ailments, family problems, addiction. I didn't hear this because this was a private conversation, but I'm just gathering that from the things we talked about in our group discussions when people were open to sharing that. So after everyone talked to Taita, it's time to head to our mats, which he assigned, by the way. And for our group, he didn't assign the specific mat, but he told you which area of the Maloka he wanted you to sit in. So that was interesting. I wonder how he determined that. During this night, the men and women were also pretty separate. So I like that. Not that I don't like men, but I just feel really safe around women, especially during something like as vulnerable as this. So we're at our mats laying down and we're waiting for the shamans and their assistants to bless the medicine. If you remember from my other videos, on night 1, I had 4 cups of ayahuasca and I thought it tasted great. I was like, oh, this is like prune juice. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Like, no problem. Not the case for the Yagé night. On night 4, that Yagé was so thick and gritty, I could barely keep a sip of it down. And when I say I couldn't keep it down, I don't mean that I threw up because I didn't throw up the entire time I was there in ceremony, but I meant I physically could not bring myself to drink the entire thing in one sitting. So I just asked the shamans if I could leave my cup up there and come get it throughout the night and have little sips whenever I needed. And they were so gracious. They were like, yes, that's fine. That's the great thing about Rythmia. They don't pressure you to do anything you don't want to do. They may push you or encourage you to go past your comfort zone, but they're never going to be like, drink the cup. Like, no, they don't do that. There were a few highlights for me throughout the Yagé night. The first one was that I really did heal my inner child. I was able to connect with my inner child in a way that I didn't even know was possible. And it was such a beautiful, fun, loving experience, especially since the night before, the third night, was basically hell on earth for me. You can go back and watch that video if you want to, but basically it was the feminine energy night, and I'm in my masculine energy a lot, so that for me was just so difficult. I had a lot of emotions to process. 0 out of 10. I mean, I needed that, but it was definitely the hardest night for me. So at one point during the night, I saw my inner child. She was about 5 years old, and I could literally see her, and she was taking me through moments of our life that she needed me and that she needed someone to stand up for her. So we were holding hands, and she would bring me to a moment, and we relived it together. But this time, I was there to protect her. This is a little tricky to explain, but you know how they say time isn't real and that everything is kind of happening at one time? That's the idea I got from this. That in that moment, I was there energetically and I was shielding her from the emotional trauma and the harshness of the reality. So during those moments, I watched her go through the traumatic things that I went through, but I put up an energetic shield and I kind of blocked her from being as impacted energetically as she might have been. It's hard to explain, but just stick with me. So I didn't stop the events from happening, but I was there to support and send healing energy and protection. So as we're going through all these different moments, a flood of like repressed memories started coming up to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this too? Oh yeah, that did happen. I forgot about that. And there were so many different events that I didn't even realize I just shoved down because they were just too painful to process, honestly. And my inner child was there to show me, like, hey, can you look at this? Let's shine some light on this. This is like kind of eating us up a little bit. It's just pushed down in the shadows. So now that I'm older and I'm wiser and I'm more experienced and I got Mother Ayahuasca with me, it's time to heal those things. So that's what we did. We actually faced all of those things together, and I was able to transmute that energy. Me and my friends always joke that I have such a bad memory, but a big part of that is that that's been my coping mechanism to deal with things. I just put it out of my mind, and I literally do not remember. And some people may say that's unhealthy, you shouldn't do that, but that's what I needed to do at that time to get through what I was going through. I think if I tried to process those events as they were happening, my nervous system would have shut down. But now I have the tools, I'm more equipped, so the time is now to heal those things. One of the main lessons I was learning that night was to learn to speak up for myself and to advocate for my inner child. But you can't advocate for your inner child if you're not listening to them. And it's so funny how Mother Ayahuasca works because she'll give you a lesson and then immediately test you. And maybe I shouldn't say test, but she will often immediately present an opportunity in which you can put into practice the lesson you just learned. So for me, there were points of the night where I was becoming overwhelmed. Maybe the music was too loud, someone was throwing up too loudly, or I was just uncomfortable. And that was a signal to me that, hey, my inner child is not feeling this. She's uncomfortable. She's scared. Are you going to do something about it? And that's when it clicked for me, like, oh, my inner child had been trying to speak to me through anxiety for years. Like a lot of people, I struggled with anxiety so much. And that was actually one of the things I was hoping that would subside a little bit by going on this journey. And I was basically shown that, hey, you're not listening to yourself. You're not listening to your inner child. You're not connected. And so she's throwing a tantrum. She's like, girl. And that tantrum is manifesting as anxiety. So when the music was too much, we went outside. When a memory became too painful, I asked her, hey, can we continue to go through this? And if so, it'll be worth it because there's light at the end of the tunnel. We just got to get through the darkness. But I will go through it with you and you will be safe. So remember when I told you we all had a chance to meet with Taita? Well, in addition to discussing our intentions, he also gave us a group number, and that later in the night, your group will be called. And when it is, that means it's time for your group to come forward for the healing. Now, the healings are individual, but you come forward in a group, I think because our group was so large, and that's just how they organized everyone. So it's the middle of the night. I have no idea what time it is because clocks are not allowed. I'm sure there are a number of reasons, but the one I was given is that time takes you out of the moment and it acts as a tether to this world. And you really don't want to be tethered when you're on ayahuasca or yahe. So they don't really want you to know what time it is. You need to focus on the present moment. So I'm outside playing in the grass, connecting with my inner child. And when I tell you, she was in control of my body. Like she was playing and laughing and rolling around in the grass. That's not something I would typically do, but it was cool. So I hear a voice from inside the maloka say, Group 2, come forward for your healing. I'm like, yes, it's time for my healing. So I go forward and I'm so confident and I walk straight up to the front and I'm stand right in front of Taita Juanito, and I just stare at him. And he's like, "What does this girl want?" And remember, he doesn't speak English, but in that moment, I forgot that. So I'm just like expecting him to like say something to me. And he just like looks away at someone like, somebody come get this girl. Basically, I was in the wrong spot. They said to come forward, but not to him. They were saying, come forward, get in line. It's almost time for the healing, not like come, like run up in his face. So, but they were super gracious. Somebody came and got me. They were like, Sister, can I help you? And I was like, I have come forward. And they were like, yeah, for what? And I was like, for my healing. You said to come forward for the healing. And they're like, girl, come over here. So before I tell you about my healing, I need to tell you about something super synchronistic that happened to me earlier that day. So a lot of you know I live in Sedona and I volunteer at a stupa. It's called the Amitabha Stupa in Peace Park. And if you ever come to Sedona, I highly recommend it. It's a very peaceful place, great for meditation, and it's beautiful. They're open to all religions. So although it is a Buddhist stupa, you can still go if you're Christian or anything else if you want to go. So that morning I woke up and I had Amitabha, which is the name of that Buddha that I go visit all the time. I had him on my mind and I was like, I need to meditate with Amitabha. For some reason, it just kept calling me. And at Rythmia, they have several different Buddhas all throughout the property, but I'm not well versed in Buddhism, so I'm not able to tell the difference between the different Buddhas, if that makes sense. I rock with Amitabha. That's who I'm always with. So I asked the staff, do you have an Amitabha Buddha here? And they're like, I don't know, girl, go look around, go see. That actually ended up being helpful because I decided to just ask Amitabha where he was. Mind you, I don't generally communicate with this Buddha in that way. When I'm in Sedona, I go there, I meditate, I walk around the stupa, but I've never had like what I consider to be a direct conversation or interaction with this Buddha. But something about the ayahuasca, it does something to your brain. It's like it removes the veil and you're able to have all these experiences and all these connections, and you're able to access all these different dimensions where anything seems possible. So, of course, it was possible to me that I could just ask Amitabha where he was. And this is in the middle of the day, not during ceremony, but the medicine does work that way. Like once it's in your system, it's kind of in there. And even now, I've been home for about 2 months and I still feel that connection. It's a little bit difficult because I'm navigating so many different energies of other people throughout the day. But whenever I go into a meditation or I'm super present, I'm able to access those same fields. Anyway, so I ask Amitabha, where are you? And he answers me. He's like, follow me. Now, if this feels offensive or disrespectful to you in some way, that is not my intention. I'm just sharing with you my experience. If you want to believe that I communicated with Amitabha, great. If you don't, great. Doesn't have to be your truth. I'm just sharing my experience in the most honest way that I know how. So I follow a path and he's saying, turn here, go here, go here. And I arrive at a statue of a Buddha. Now, the voice never identified if this was actually Amitabha or if this was just a good place for me to sit and listen. So the voice that I'm attributing to Amitabha said, have a seat, sit with me. So I sat and I meditated and he showed me a mudra for patience. And I was like, okay, thanks, I guess. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Then he actually instructed me to cut my nails so that my fingertips could be touching because my nails were too long at the time and like they were getting in the way of the mudra. So fast forward to the night of the ceremony, and I'm waiting in a very long line to receive my healing. And I had been using this mudra all night because there was a lot of long lines and a lot of waiting. And I was like, wait a minute, I got this. I got my patience mudra. And I was just doing it, and it was a vibe. And I was so grateful. I just thought that was so cool and synchronistic. Finally, it's my time for my healing, and Taita comes and stands in front of me, and his assistants and maybe another shaman were like all surrounding me. And I'm still deep in inner child mode. So I'm like excited. I'm smiling. I'm like, yes, let's do it. Meanwhile, there's like crying and screaming and throwing up going on all around me. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. All I can see is Taita's feathers. Like he wears this beautiful, beautiful, I don't want to call it like a headpiece. I'll put it up here. But he wears this beautiful headpiece and there's all these feathers. And the inner child in me was just like, wow. So I looked at him and I'm like, I love your feathers. And he smiled. And then he starts doing whatever he's doing with his healing. He has like the feathers and he's like tickling me with them. And they're chanting. And it's just a vibe. And I feel so good. Like my energy just shifts. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm floating. Like, I didn't know what to expect when they said you were getting a healing. Whatever that was a healing. Like, I was just like, I felt like my soul was just dancing and it was so beautiful. I was having an amazing time. And I remember thinking after, like, Taita Juanito is not scary at all. Like, he's super playful. But again, I think the medicine and the shaman give you what you need in that moment. And that's what I needed. I needed someone to be playful and fun with me. So after that moment, there was no doubt in my mind. I was like, okay, mission accomplished. I have merged back with my soul at all costs. I have healed my heart. Hallelujah. By the way, that doesn't mean I can just like pack it up and head off earth. There's always healing to be done. We're like onions. But I mean, I feel like I healed a lot of stuff during that trip. After my healing was over, I got up from the chair, and for the first time in all of my nights of ceremony, I saw my boyfriend across the room. I hadn't seen that man the first night, second night, third night. But on the fourth night after that, I looked up and he was sitting right there. So I totally forgot all the rules about not talking to any other guests during the ceremony. And my inner child was like, let's go talk to him. So I'm like slow motion, like reaching, about to go say something to him. And then I'm just intercepted by like two staff members. They're like, sister, where's your mat? Let's go find your mat. I'm like, wow, they're good at their jobs. There's so many moving parts and so many personalities, but they don't miss a thing. That was very impressive. As I mentioned before, the Yagé ceremony is the longest ceremony. It goes to about 7 or 8 in the morning. The sun rises during that ceremony and it is just so beautiful. So if you're going to go to Rythmia, if you're going to do this, go outside and watch the sunrise. Highly recommend. They have a cutoff time of when they stop serving medicine each night for a number of reasons, but one that I mentioned before is that your eyes are very sensitive to light. This is one of the reasons they do all the ceremonies at night. But by the time the sun rises, I think the medicine is enough out of your system a little bit so it doesn't hurt your eyes, and it is very beautiful. After each ceremony, you have like a little recap where the entire group sits together with the shamans and people can ask questions about anything they experience. These moments were some of my favorite on the trip because it's just so cool to hear about what everyone's going through. And some people did have some really tough stuff they were dealing with. Some people felt like they didn't get like the joyous experience that other people got. But again, it's not all like dancing and sunshine and fun. Sometimes when you're working through something, it's not going to feel great in the moment, but it's totally worth it. It's important to mention that we're all very exhausted during these meetings. So literally people are laying on the ground and listening. Some people are half sleeping. Some people are sleeping. There's no pressure to sit and be engaged and sit up straight. It's just helpful to be there. But you don't have to participate if you don't want to. Like sometimes you're just exhausted and you just need a nap. I was definitely going in and out. Like I wanted to hear so badly because it was interesting. But sometimes I was just like, I just got to close my eyes. One thing that I thought was super interesting is that Taita shared with us that when he began drinking Yagé, he did not have a vision for years. Like literal years he was drinking this medicine, nothing. I thought that was so wild, and I just thought it was such a testament to how patient this man was because let me tell you something, I would have backed it up a long time ago. But clearly, like, this was in his lineage, this was a gift he was meant to have, and, like, I'm so grateful he pushed through it because now he can be a blessing to so many people. Okay, I feel like I covered a lot of ground. I think I answered all the questions. If you have any more, put them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all soon. Love you!